It's about to go down with Marc and Cathey, a live coaching show about dropping ideas. Marc and Cathey coach and have conversations with brilliant idea creators who are reimagining the world through the expression of their words, thoughts, and action.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to It's About to Go Down. I'm Marc Williams.
And I'm Cathey Armillas. I'm really excited. Alicia Butler Pierre is here with us today. I met Alicia when she was getting ready to give her TEDx talk, and it wasn't here in the United States. She had to cross over an ocean. And so I'll let her tell you about that. But she is an operational change maker. Operational change maker, Marc. Woo, can't wait to get into that. But her idea that she wants to talk about, which is super exciting, and it really connects with why she went over the ocean to give her TEDx talk, is about how random connections can come up and how sometimes you have to cross the ocean to get to those random connections. So, Alicia, welcome to our show. It's about to go down. And tell us about your idea and your trip across the ocean.
Cathey, Marc, first, thank you both so much. And I want to first say thank you both for your support, because you played a very important role in the story that we'll be talking about during this episode. Yes. Yes, you did. So do you want me to just get started?
Go right into it.
Yes, yeah.
Hey,
Tell us all about it.
Tell us about crossing the ocean.
So let's see. Well, first, I guess I should start with 5 years ago, actually 6 years ago now, 2019, I wanted to desperately raise my online profile. I started to invest quite a bit in my personal brand, not just my company's brand, but my business, my personal brand, because I recognize that people connect with people and not necessarily companies. They connect with the people in the companies, right? So I had a very low profile. I realized that I was suffering within obscurity because no one knew about me, but yet I felt I had all of these great ideas. So what platform do people go to share their ideas with the world? TED, the TEDx stage in particular. That's how it all got started. And I should say, maybe it started when I wrote my book, which was back in 2018. And that was a way of me getting all of this information I had in my head into a tangible format that could, again, be shared with the masses. So the next step was this TEDx talk. Oh my gosh, Marc and Cathey. I had this idea. I had three different ideas, I should say. Three different ideas, but there was one in particular that I started working with someone to shop that idea around. And there was rejection after rejection after rejection. And as you both know, it's kind of like filling out or applying for a job. You don't always necessarily get that official rejection. You just know when you haven't heard something after a month or two, you just know, I didn't get that one. And of course, you don't always have the benefit of knowing why you did not get that job. Well, the same is true really with TEDx. You can apply to all of these different TEDx events, but you won't always have the benefit of knowing why you didn't make the cut as one of these selected speakers. So this went on, and then now we're into 2020. It's COVID. I got close to being on the stage twice in 2020. Okay, it's COVID. The first time, the organizers started to ghost us speakers. The closer and closer we started to get to the date of the event. I remember the event was supposed to be in April 2020. It was going to be in person with social distancing being a factor. But officially 2 weeks before the event was supposed to take place, the organizer just completely ghosted us. And we realized, okay, this event isn't going to happen. We had all booked flights, booked Airbnbs, hotel rooms. It was a mess. Thankfully, I was able to get a credit or refund on those things. Fast forward, by that June, I was accepted by another TEDx event. This one was in California. The event was supposed to take place in October of 2020, also in person, social distancing. And about a month before that one was supposed to take place, started getting ghosted again.
No, come on. God. Ah.
It's like, okay, I've seen this before. So 2021, I was like, I'm so over this. But the person that I had hired to help me apply for these, to speak on the TEDx stage, she kept going, she and her team. By 2022, I think she had also just given up. But what's interesting in 2022 was when I mentioned my third idea to her. And that third idea is the one that I would ultimately end up giving my talk on or talk about. 2023, still kind of applying here and there, but I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm just randomly applying to things. I started getting my assistant involved and she was helping me out. And by the beginning of 2024, I started to educate myself even more about TEDx. Like, okay, we can figure this out. We being my assistant and I. Now, mind you, I had already paid this other service, this lady and her company to do this for me, but I think she also just gave up. And probably at this point, we're at least 130 applications in. So that's 130 applications, rejections, no shows, ghosting, all that kind of stuff. We started applying to different TEDx events. Once again, in 2024, I was coaching my assistant on how to respond to some of the questions on the applications because there's a lot of similarity across most of those applications. And I remember one day we would faithfully have meetings on Monday mornings. And I told her, I said, this just isn't working. You know what? Wouldn't it be funny? Because the third topic, by the way, everyone, for those watching or listening to us right now, the third topic is about the importance of relocating whenever you feel as though your talents are just being suppressed. And what I mean by that is you're talented, people are telling you you're so good at what you do. So it's not just, your ego saying that you're really good. So many other people are telling you that you're great at what you do, but yet you're not getting the recognition and you certainly aren't getting rewarded financially. So it might mean that you need to relocate. And sometimes that means you might have to cross an ocean to do that. And I'm a fan of Jimi Hendrix. I was always struck by his story and how here was this man, this genius in the making, lying in wait, really, when you think about it, traveling all throughout the US, literally a starving artist, and a chance encounter at a small club in New York City by the person who would ultimately become his manager, a British manager, happened to see him perform and was completely struck by his talent, offered him the opportunity to go over to London, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
So I told my assistant, let's circle back to the assistant. And I said, her name is Erica. I said, Erica, wouldn't it be funny if we started intentionally applying to TEDx events outside of the US, and this is the topic that they want? I kid you not, Cathey and Marc, we had that conversation on a Monday. By Tuesday or Wednesday of that week, she started connecting or applying to different events outside of the US, within one of which was called TEDx Viki. That is in Helsinki, Finland. That organizer responded within 24 hours. And he reached out to me on LinkedIn, and his message was very short. He said, "Can you talk via Zoom today?" I said, "Sure." Let's make that
Hear that,
happen.
schedule?
Let's make that happen. I presented 2 of the 3 ideas to him. And I said, I have a feeling I know which one you're going to select. And sure enough, it was the one where I talk about the importance of relocating to have your talents recognized, rewarded, appreciated, using this phenomenon that I refer to as the Jimmy effect. Not the Jimi Hendrix effect, but the Jimmy effect. And we can talk about that later, why I'm calling it the Jimmy effect and not the Jimi Hendrix effect. So sure enough, that's how it happened. So by that point, it was May of 2024, and the event happened in October 2024. And that's a story in and of itself, getting over there to make this happen. So I'll pause there, and because there's so much more to say, but do you all have any questions? Do you want to talk like any?
Oh, look at Mark.
Want me to
Mark is
elaborate
full
on?
of questions. I can tell that's a head that is full of questions.
I got it. But I'm curious, Cathey, what's on your mind?
On my mind. Oh,
Yeah,
well,
I'm
you know,
curious. I'm curious.
because I know the story, well, first of all, to anybody watching, because as you both know, me being a TED coach, I've coached people both on the big TED stage and many, 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 many people on TEDx stage. I don't usually take clients that don't have the TED. I'm not one of those people that are like, pay me this much money and I'll get you a TED talk. Because usually, as you maybe found out, Alicia, the services are not that great. But with special cases and people that I know, I do. And I'm currently working with somebody right now. And I just want to make a parallel to everything that you just said. She had a whole list, which by the way, she bought this list from somebody that had all the information that you could find online, but it was cool actually. It was on a Google sheet that was like, it was all kind of laid out for you, but it's all free on the TED site. You can look and see what's coming up by location or by date, by type, because there's like regular standard TEDx events, and then there's women events, and then there's university and student events. Mark, and you know about that one too. Um, the biggest problem that people have is they forget the audience. I'm not saying you did this, Alicia, but I'm gonna segue into what you said, and so like I've found in my industry, in the speaking industry, people are like, but I have 10 books and I speak all over the world. Why doesn't TED want me on their stage? And they literally will apply to 2, 3, 400. And they're like, what is going on? Not even a response. And I go, well, you got to know, you got to be able to take what you're talking about and why you're the best person to talk about that and kind of merge that with what they're looking for and what their audience is. And this is not a speaking engagement. This is an idea that should be shared with the world. And so I so appreciate, Alicia, that you found your way. That you like went, okay, 120 check. I have no idea what's going on, but I know I have something really important to say. And so I just want to applaud you, first of all, for finding your way and being brave enough to go outside of the United States. Helsinki, come on. It's known for being one of the happiest places in the world. Like I'm so grateful that this ended where it did. I do have the first question for you though.
Okay.
What what do you think what hit you when you went through over 100 applications? Clearly you knew it wasn't you because you kept going. What was it? What was the thing that hit you about that? Like what did you say like, "Oh, I'm doing this wrong," besides just even the international? Was there any other things that hit you about that and made you kind of course correct or change your direction?
Well, no, I, it definitely tore away at my self-esteem.
Oh,
To be very honest, no, seriously, when you get that kind of
yeah.
rejection, and I think if I were not a business owner, I probably would have stopped after
Mm,
like 30 applications because, it can wear on you when you constantly receive rejections. Um, and I'm the type of person, I just don't give up easily. And that can be a
I
blessing.
know. I
That can
love
be a
that.
blessing and a curse, though. It can be a curse because sometimes I should walk away from things way sooner than I do. But I'm also persistent. I'm just persistent. Like a little dog that just, I sink my teeth into something and I just cannot let it go. So I kept saying, all right, well, maybe I'm doing something, there's something I'm doing wrong. Or maybe it's the idea itself. Now, I should share this for anyone who's watching or listening right now. It's not necessarily that you have a quote unquote bad idea. It could be that your idea just doesn't align with the theme of that event. And not every organizer reveals the theme. And they do that intentionally because they don't want people tweaking and customizing their talks to fit. They're trying to make sure that people aren't trying to fit that square in the round hole.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So don't be discouraged because you just might have to keep trying and trying and trying. And another thing that I found out, and this was a Freudian slip, I think. I attended this free TEDx, how to land a TEDx type webinar that was offered through a LinkedIn Live event. And the person who was conducting that event said, yeah, well, most of us organizers, we already know who we're going to have to speak. Like we know most of the speakers, or there's a pipeline. There might be other people who kind of provide that pipeline of speakers to them. Because TEDx is a completely 100% volunteer endeavor.
Yep.
And they were like, you have to keep in mind that everyone who's working on these teams to put these events together, they're not getting paid for it. So that might also explain why you might not hear anything back and those kinds of things. So I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that. And that's actually how I met Cathey along that journey, because as I was starting to toy with this idea of going overseas to land a talk, I also started to intentionally reach out to other event organizers so that I could start learning from them and seeing about the things that they post and the things that they're doing. And Cathey, I have to just thank you once again because you were so warm and so welcoming, and you invited me into your speaker community to kind of be a fly on the wall. And I learned so much. And I took a lot of the things that you and Marc would teach during those different sessions in your community. And I was able to apply those things. Like I remember one of the sessions was about the importance of using analogies and similes and metaphors to really make language come alive. That's how the idea of intentionally using names of different Jimi Hendrix songs to weave that throughout my talk. So people, it's funny because people who are not familiar with his music, they have no idea. They just think
the huge
I'm saying
Easter
words.
basket full of Easter eggs.
They have no idea,
Yeah.
When I say voodoo child, or, they stood all along the watchtower, like they don't realize those are actual names of songs.
Yeah.
And I know I went around the world and back because Cathey, there was, about going back to what kept me going. I kept thinking to myself, well, if I just tweak it, or if maybe I need to start pitching these other ideas, because I went after that one particular idea really hard. And I said, well, let me try pitching these other two ideas. But it wasn't until we started to go overseas that we thought, okay, we're going overseas. This third idea about the Jimmy effect and the importance of relocating, that is probably going to resonate best with me being an American applying to speak to these different TEDx events overseas. And then finally, I love reading, watching, listening to other successful people. And any successful person that you read about, if you listen to them being interviewed, if you watch them being interviewed, there is trial, there is tribulation, there are obstacles. And usually it's, and I mean, it could be anyone. It could be fashion, media, science, professional services, whatever your industry is, when you start looking at the people who are at the top of those industries or the people who are considered to be super successful, they didn't get there by accident. They put in the work and they kept going. They kept going. I listened to a lot of podcasts. Where I remember listening to a podcast about Dolly Parton and just knowing that story and how much she had to overcome in order to get to where she is in her career today. So that's why I say sometimes it's that dogged persistence can be a blessing, but it can also be a curse, because sometimes I don't know when to just stop and say, okay, girl, you have beaten this into a pulp. It's time to move on.
Alicia, you're speaking to my heart and my soul right now.
Oh,
wow.
look, I snapped and the lights came on in my office. Let there be lights. Yes, Marc. Yes.
Such an amazing story. And here's a few phrases that I've pulled out of the story, and then I'm gonna set this up to ask your question.
Okay.
Around the world and back. Changing directions. You found your way. Overseas. Relocating. To be exact, the importance of relocating when you feel your talents are being repressed. I thought about all of those directional phrases, right? There was a part of me that was wondering, how come you didn't just go across the border? Why'd you go overseas? And it made me think, well, what were you looking for in a stage? And here's why I asked that. I was in a conversation with somebody a long time ago about a job that I had. And I just felt like I could have done a better job at that job. And the person said to me something I will never forget. She said, I just want you to remember that sometimes you can be a fish in the wrong bowl. Boom. Here you are, the qualified, super awesome, amazing, ambitious fish trying to swim on this TEDx stage in this fishbowl, and you decided you were going overseas. And when I think about that, I get that you've given a TED talk on this, so you've spoken about this. And I'm wondering about that next level nuance for me as a question, which is, how do you know where to look for? How do you know what kind of fishbowl you're looking for? How do you know what kind of stage that you're looking for? Because we can all swim in the ocean, but we sometimes don't know where the hell we're swimming. So, Alicia, how do you know what to look for and where to look when the place you are isn't feeding your soul?
That is an amazing question, Marc. Okay. Someone shared with me this was when I first thought of the Jimmy effect, calling it the Jimmy effect. I remember mentioning this to someone years ago, and he said, well, yeah, it's like that biblical passage, there is no prophet in his hometown. And so I knew that I had to start getting out of my own backyard. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta is not home, but it's been home for the past 20 years. So this is home. And why didn't I just go to Canada where they speak English? I actually did apply to an event in Canada right on the tail end of 2019. And that's when I first learned how serious this COVID thing was. I submitted an application. They wanted a script. It took me 40 hours to prepare that application because they wanted an actual script. They wanted, and I didn't have a script written. So it wasn't just, oh, what's your name? Hi, Cathey, what's your name? Marc, well, what's your idea about? Why do you think it's an idea that should be shared with the world? No, they wanted that plus a script. They wanted links to other videos that you had given on YouTube. It was intense. I did all of that. I submitted it. I will never forget. I submitted it. It was the deadline was on a Friday. I submitted it that Friday morning. Within the hour, they were like, "Oh, we see you're in the US. Darn, you know what? You're not rejected, but it's disqualified because we aren't confident that Americans would be able to cross over into Canada
Oh,
because of COVID." This was November 2019, and I was like, "COVID?
what's COVID?
What do you know?
COVID?"
We're like 4 months into the future.
It's like I had heard rumblings of COVID, but I didn't know it was that serious, right?
Bro, what?
Like,
So I was
yeah.
so okay. So that answers Canada, right? And then Mexico, I know enough Spanish to be dangerous, and that's a whole other story. So I
Same,
knew
same.
I knew if I went south of the border that I would definitely have to deliver the talk in Spanish. Here's the second part to answering your question, Marc. Just being led and being open. I had this thought also, which is a parallel story that I would love to be able to share also. Around the time also that I wrote my book, that I said, okay, I want to give a TEDx talk to increase my personal brand. And if I can draw more people to me, they can then be diverted to the business. I also started thinking, I've got to get out of not just Atlanta, I've got to get out of the US. I have this suspicion, I can't prove it. I have this suspicion that if I start going overseas, my business will take off. And people kept looking at me like, what are you talking about, Alicia? That's crazy. And what? So I started a podcast. I started intentionally interviewing people in other countries.
Yeah.
And they all started, we would start to connect, and we connect outside of the show, and instantly, Alicia, how can we do things together? We love what you're doing. We need this in my country. So once COVID was over, I started traveling with purpose. Traveling with purpose. Not only just traveling for fun, but traveling. And I met with a lot of these people that I had interviewed on my podcast. I went to 9 countries in 2 years, meeting people, talking business. And I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. So Marc, when it came to which country to apply for, we just started applying. My assistant just started applying overseas. It's coincidental that it happened to be Helsinki, Finland, but it could have been somewhere. And I remember there was another strong interest from Dubai, as well as London, a university in London. So my thought was anywhere outside of the US at this point. Anywhere outside of the US. It just happened to be Finland that responded first, responded and accepted. Because I forgot to mention that part. As soon as I told that particular organizer, his name is Osita. Hi, Osita. As soon as Osita heard the second idea about the Jimmy effect, he was like, that's the one. That's the one.
Oh, good job, Osita.
And he said, you're in luck, because just yesterday I was telling my team we need one more speaker. And I got that slot.
Oh, such a good story.
Yes.
Marc, what a great question. Alicia, I want to tell you, so from another perspective, so you saw it from one side. I can tell you from the organizer side, and been coaching people for a long time. There's a couple of things that you mentioned in your story that I think would be fun to put a pin on. For instance, this question where they'll ask you like, what is your speaking experience? It's kind of a trick question. It's a trick question because if you're out there and you're already speaking on this, you're an immediate no, immediately. So they don't want to put people on their stages for the most part. I can't speak for every single organizer, but the TED culture and what comes down from TED, it's even literally on the TED.com site. TEDx events are not made for people who already have a platform and speak, they're not made for speakers, entertainers, something like there's something like that it's made for people that have good ideas that don't normally have a voice or a platform to share it on. So it's kind of a trick question, like what you're speaking. I think some of the organizers do want, for their own sake of like, can this person talk well? They want to see.
Yes.
I think they want to see something.
Yes. Absolutely.
But if they see that you have 7 books on the same subject and you've talked about it 100, other times, then you're going to be an immediate no. So it is kind of funny, these little details, right? You've learned a lot through just the experience. Some of the organizers will hold back the theme because they don't want people trying to like force feed a theme into what they're saying. And then they get the talk and then they don't do that at all, right? And the day of, it doesn't match, I wanted to say one more thing to the audience because you mentioned something and I think it's really important. TEDx is 100% run by volunteers. That's super true. And I think it attracts a lot of really creative, awesome people for the most part. And I think a lot of people really understand TED's mission and how it should work and what the branding's all about. And that's why some things are super important, like having the red dot and keeping the speaker contained. It like fits all with the brand. Elevating one idea, not 10, not 5, all these things kind of stick with the brand. There's this, from Marc and I's perspective, as also speaker coaches, longtime speaker coaches, there's something that I see sometimes, and I'll tell you're already beyond this, so this advice it comes a little too late, but to anybody else that I've worked with several people, Alicia, that I started talking to them and I'm like, I know you got a TED Talk with this event. If I were you, my advice is I wouldn't do it. And here's a couple of red flags. And one of the red flags is like having a script. So I have a really quick story. There was a lady I was coaching in New Jersey a couple of years ago. She had, by the time she had found me, she had already been asked to give this TED Talk. It was a really important idea. And she was the right person to give it, and she had all the right stuff, and they were trying to force her into a script. And I kept telling her, I go, well, why don't you go back and tell the organizers this? And she did, and they just, I think they were new at it, and so they were like, to feel better, they wanted a script. I finally just said, where they're trying to force you to go, I wouldn't go if I were you. I would not, I would decline to speak at this. And she ended up doing it. The day of the event comes around. She's already connected to a bunch of the other speakers. Shit show. Like, wow. 5 of the speakers forgot, like blanked out, forgot what they were supposed to say. In the moment live, they tried to like restart, and a complete amateur hour, right? And apparently like a bunch of the talks just couldn't be uploaded. Could you imagine if you spent 3, 4, 5, 6 months of your life, maybe not even counting the time to apply, and then you start to come into this mold. So I want to attach to something that you already said. And Marc, you called it, you've had Alicia find it because you asked her those questions. You said it was a gut feeling, Alicia. And I think to anybody watching, if you're in the moment where you're trying to give a TED Talk, your advice was awesome. You probably have a good idea, but go with your gut on things. And if somebody tells you something like, hey, you should stick to a script, and that doesn't feel like that will work for you, or doesn't feel like that's a space that you can connect in, move on. That's not the right spot for you. So anyway, I just wanted to make a couple of these connections because you made some. I feel like this episode of this show, so many people are going to want to watch because I think there's a lot of people that want to give a TED Talk, and we're really getting into the ins and outs of how you get there.
Oh, okay. So you mentioned something, Kev, a very important part of this story. So, um, because I blanked, I also blanked during my talk.
Mm.
So let me just tell this part of the story really quickly. Okay, so you're right. You rehearse. There's a lot of preparation. So imagine when those two other events did not take place back that I mentioned earlier during COVID. The first one, we had practiced every single Saturday via Zoom for 4 months.
Oof.
4 months every single Saturday, and
Wow.
then to be ghosted. Okay, anyway,
Yeah. Ooh.
moving on, moving on. And that's your time. Time is my most precious resource
Mm.
by far, and you can't get it back. You
Mm.
cannot get it back. Okay, so moving ahead to 2024, um, when I should set the stage for what happened leading up to the TEDx event, I started writing a script, which is something I don't do, to your point, Cathey, but the organizer, was kind of encouraging us to write our scripts and start practicing. And I when I'm normally speaking, I usually have slides also, and I know if I see an image, I can immediately just start speaking to the points, and I'll obviously time myself and make sure that I don't go over. I'm a Toastmaster, so I know how to stay within the time limits and all those kinds of things. But being in Toastmasters and giving a TEDx talk, again, are two very, very, very different things. Um, Leading up to the TEDx talk, so the TEDx talk was October 12th, 2024. In September, I crossed the ocean. I went to an event, a chance. I still to this day don't know how I received an invitation to this, but it was a Wall Street Journal event in Singapore, capped at
Mm.
100 people, and I was invited. Don't know how. And they were like, it's free. Just if you have to pay for your flight to get here, but the event itself is free. So I fly there, and I'm not in a good situation mentally because there were some things going on in the business. There were some things going on personally. And that's for a different show. We can talk about that. There was a lot going on, a lot that was weighing very heavy on my mind. But I said, you know what? Again, trusting my gut,
Mm.
go, go.
Yeah.
I get there, and getting to Singapore was a total disaster. I ended up being stuck in Turkey. That was horrific. But by the grace of God, I made it to Singapore in time for this event. While at this event, remember, it's very small, very intimate, maximum 100 people. I think I may have been only one of 3 Americans there.
Mm.
While I'm there, I see this lady, and something tells me, an inner voice is like, go talk to her. I was struck by her outfit. She had this beautiful silk 2-piece suit on, and she just looked impeccable. She was impeccably
Mm.
dressed. She was just so well put together. And I was like, and she was kind of standing off to her, to the side to herself. I was like, I'm going to go introduce myself to this lady. She tells me that she introduces herself. She tells me she's from Qatar. And I was like, really? I have been trying to figure out how I could expand my company's operations into Qatar for the
Mm.
past year. And she
Mm.
said, oh, well, this is what you do. Boom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She just starts, I mean, she rattles it off right then and there. I was like, oh my gosh. And she said, well, how soon are you looking to do this? And I said, well, I've been working at this for the past 12 months. So it's not like I'm not in any particular hurry, but it is something that I'm very serious about doing. From a strategic standpoint, geographically, it would be a great place for me to have kind of boots on the ground, be able to do some work in Asia. Remember, this ties back to crossing an ocean with the business. I have this feeling, this gut feeling again, that things will take off once I can actually set up somewhere overseas. She said, if you can wait until February of 2025, there's a conference that will take place there. My organization will offer certain perks and benefits. She gave me examples of what those perks and benefits could be for people seeking to either start a business or expand their business operations into Qatar. I said, okay. She gave me her business card, and I didn't see her again until last month, February. That's Cathey, when I think that's the trip that I was coming back from. Okay, that's September. I get back to the States. I have 2 weeks now to get my act together for going to Helsinki. And my parents went with me. We're on the plane. We go from Atlanta to London, and then from London to Helsinki. En route from Atlanta to London, obviously we're crossing the Atlantic Ocean. I have flown quite a bit, Marc and Cathey, in my lifetime, in my 48 years of life. And I have never experienced turbulence like we did on this particular flight. So I'm in a deep sleep at a certain point, and the plane drops. And at this point, I know we're definitely over the ocean. There is no land underneath us. We are dead smack over the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So it was a jolting feeling. And so that's what woke me up. And then it happened again, and people started screaming. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. God, I know you did not have my parents and I come across this ocean to not be able to together for this to be our fate. I know this is not what's going to happen to us. The plane then dropped a third time. And what made me even more nervous was the fact that the pilot just didn't say anything on the plane. Like, there was just aside from the screams, there was no interaction from the flight attendants or the rest of the cabin crew, the pilot. Well, then it finally settles down. We make it to London and then on to Helsinki. To fast forward through this story, the day of the event, I'm the last speaker. And I thought, okay, they're saving the best for last, right?
Heck yeah.
I had those nerves that you were talking about, Cathey. I did not eat prior to leaving out to go to the event. I left my mom and my parents were there. My parents and one of my cousins, we had all gotten an Airbnb. I left them. They said they would join me later on at the event. So I left early that morning, didn't have a chance to grab breakfast, but I'm thinking, oh, I'll eat at the event. There was no food at the event. There was no food. I'm the last speaker, okay? And I remember being in the back of the stage area, and I went through it from beginning to end, no hiccups. It flowed. I'm ready. As I'm approaching the stage, Alexandra Knight, who goes by Alex, she's British. She was one of the speakers. She comes up to me, Alicia, would you like for me to, do you have your script with you? Now, here's what's funny about her asking about my script. I looked at it that morning before I left the Airbnb, and I was like, I don't need this. I got this, right? I got this. I don't need this. Again, trusting my gut and that inner voice, my inner voice said, bring it anyway. Thank goodness I did. I said, well, yeah, Alex, I have it, She's like, do you want me to, I could stand on the side of the stage, just in case. I know you won't get stuck. But just in case. And I said, okay. And she said, that's what Josh did for me. And I was like, really? That's her husband. I said, really? I had no idea you got stuck on stage. You flowed, it flowed seamlessly. Thank goodness for Alexandra Knight.
Mm.
Alex, I hope you, when I share this link with you, please watch this because I have continued to thank her every chance I get.
Mm.
I got stuck probably 5 times. And it was
Oh.
kind of like I was a robot. Like I'd start talking and then I'd just look like a blank stare. I'm hungry. I can see people in the back of the room moving around. I can hear them talking. The distance between myself being on the stage and the audience was significant. So I couldn't really make eye contact. I
Mm.
had trouble connecting with the audience. I didn't have my glasses on, so I really couldn't see. It
Is anybody out there?
was dark. The spotlights, the stage was super, super, super small. The spotlights literally were this close on me. So
Mm.
it's these blinding lights. I can't make out facial features on anyone. So I don't know if what I'm saying is even landing. And I was in my head at that point, and I would get stuck. And then I'd hear, and then Jimmy said, or and then it happened all along the watchtower. And it was like winding up a little wind up doll. It's like, oh, and then I'd get stuck again. And then she'd wind me up some more. It was,
Oh.
I mean, you talk about a shit show. I was just like, oh my God. I've waited and worked so hard for the past 5 years, and I get up here and I fumble the ball like this. Are you kidding me? Thank God for
Mm.
editing. Thank God for
Mm.
editing. Thank goodness also that it was a powerful enough message that
Yeah.
people
Yes. Yes. Yes.
people
Yes.
still connected with me after I got off the stage. I have to say this also, as soon as I walked off the stage, because I'm feeling like crap about myself. I am
Mm.
feeling like crap. Cesar Suarez Uribe and his daughter Daniela, Cesar was also a speaker, came all the way from Colombia. He gave me the biggest hug and he said,
Oh.
you were amazing. And then
Mm.
all of my other fellow speakers, they just kind of formed this like
Mm.
cocoon around me. And it was a type of love and support that I really, really, really needed in that time, considering all of the personal and professional things that were not going so well in my life at that time. The biggest thing I should mention, I had a I had a bank scam. I was a victim of a bank scam that
Mm.
literally wiped out my business bank account. So I had all of this playing in the
Mm.
back of my mind as I'm on this stage, and I'm trying to suppress that. I'm trying to suppress, those
Mm.
like, oh girl, what are you going to do? How are you going to meet payroll? What are you
Mm.
doing? You have all these other things going on. You shouldn't even be here. You can't afford this trip. Are you crazy?
Mm.
Okay, so I get back to Atlanta. And then at this point, a couple of weeks go by, Halloween is approaching. So I rolled up my sleeves. I said, okay, Mr. Bank, you're playing hardball. You don't want to give me my money back. And I've told you guys how this scam is working and that it will impact many more customers. I was so busy waiting on other journalists and investigative news reporters to pick up my story because trust me, I had reached out to them telling them like, can you believe this? I'm pretty smart and savvy enough, but I got taken for a ride. And this is how the scam happened. And the bank is not going to give me my money back.
Mm.
Inner voice again, gut feeling said,
Mm.
you are who you are waiting on. You
Ooh.
have a platform. You know how to write. Tell your own story because only you can tell this story.
Yeah.
So I started writing. And the next intuitive thought that I had was wait until Halloween to release this article. I
Mm.
released it Halloween morning, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. And it was called, well, I probably shouldn't say the name because I'll name the bank. But if necessary, I can give a link to the article so people can go and read it for themselves. By 12 o'clock noon, that money was back in my account.
Oh, nice.
By 12
Way
o'clock
to,
noon, that
way
money
to
was
use
back
your
in.
voice, Alicia.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, but here I am thinking I don't have a voice. I don't have a large enough platform, right? So it kind of ties into the whole thing about TEDx. Well, I have this idea, but maybe, maybe it's just maybe it isn't good enough, or maybe I do need to be more famous and more popular and blah 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 blah. And it's like, no, you have an idea. You just have to find the right person or the right event organizer to provide the platform for you to share that idea. And same thing with this. You use your own voice. You're waiting on all of these other people, all of these other watchdog agencies and groups. You're waiting on these other investigative reporters. They have thousands probably of other people reaching out to them with horror stories of things that have gone wrong from a consumer, lack of consumer protection standpoint. You are who you are waiting on.
mm.
So
That's a
use your
great line.
voice.
That's a great line. Alicia, I'm going to go out on a limb and ask you something to connect your trip overseas and then this instance with the bank. I'm going on a limb. I don't know what your answer to this question is going to be. For you, is there a connection between the decision to go overseas to do this TED Talk and what happened with your finances? Meaning, do you think that going overseas and doing that TED Talk gave you something that allowed you to come back here and turn things around? Do you think that what you were able to accomplish with the bank is a benefit that would not have happened had you not gone overseas?
Mm.
I definitely came back with a sense of renewed confidence. And I had better clarity, Mark, because there's something about getting away. Even if you just have a staycation, and you go to, I don't know, you take a 1 hour drive away from wherever you live. There's something about being away for a little bit where you can clear your head. For me, I had the benefit of being on a very long flight, so I could think. And I really started thinking about all of there was a lot of trash that needed to be discarded in my life, physically and metaphorically, or figuratively, I should say. So I started letting go of unhealthy people that were in my life, people that I knew did not mean me well, mean me any good. These were people that I started really educating myself about narcissistic personality disorder and realized, oh my God, I'm surrounded by them. And as I started to get rid of each one of them off that list, things started opening up. It was really about me being able to trust in my own ability to make decisions and stop reaching out, looking for validation from all of these other external sources. That's really what it was about. So yes, Mark, when I went overseas and I was like, okay, I can do this. I can speak in a way that resonates with other people. And I don't have to go through this song and dance of validating myself, improving myself. They know just from my presence and my aura and me speaking, this lady knows what she's talking about. But see, when I'm here in the States, it's this constant, well, who are you and what have you done? And like Cathey said, how many stages have you spoken on and how many books have you written and how many podcasts have you been interviewed on? And it's just like, it just seems as though it's never enough and it is wearing me down. If I may, because I know we probably have to start wrapping up soon. If I may circle back to the story about Layla, the beautiful woman that I met from Qatar in Singapore, September 2024. Fast forward to January of 2025. I had worked on a project that I knew I should not have taken on for one of those narcissistic personality types. And sure enough, this person did not pay my company. And I'm getting in this battle with him. And after a conversation with my sister, she was like, leave this guy alone. Yeah, you could take him to court and you could win, but he would make it his mission to ruin your life. He's the type of person who plays dirty. And I remembered something, this is going to sound really funny and really bizarre, but I remember something I heard in a Lil Wayne interview a couple of years ago. And he said, don't ever cross a man who has nothing to lose. And this guy had a lot to lose. I'm sorry, I have a lot to lose. This person doesn't. This other person doesn't. I said, you know what? Take the L, Alicia. Again, trust in your ability, trust in your decisions, trust in your gut, trust your gut feelings, trust those inner voices, trust those intuitive thoughts, because it told you don't do this, but you did it anyway. And now look, you didn't get compensated for it. So here we are again, about to cross an ocean into Qatar, which is the correct pronunciation.
Yeah, I figured
I have this, right? I have this this financial dilemma once again. I have this financial dilemma, and I'm like, oh my God, I know the cost of getting my business registered here is $5,000 minimum. That's not counting taxes and all of the other fees. I get to Qatar. I attend the conference. And remember when I told you Layla told me that they would be offering certain perks and benefits during this conference only? In the conference app, I noticed it said that they were waiving fees. A chance encounter with another woman at this conference. This conference had 15,000 people.
Wow.
15,000 people. Okay. I meet this other woman, Nigerian, Khadijah. And she said, I'm curious, are you interested in starting a business here? Or I said, well, I have a company, but I want to expand here. She said, well, you know, they're waiving the fee to start a business, to register a business here. And I said, like the $5,000 fee? Is that the fee you're talking about? She said, yes. And they're waiving it for the next 4 years. If you can register your business while you're here this week, you will save $20,000 worth of fees. So here I was stressing over, oh my God, I didn't get compensated for this work that I did fair and square. And now it was not an easy process. It was not an easy process. And was so funny. The website kept crashing. There were all of these, it was chaotic because there were so many people there. But I must say, I saw Layla, the lady that I met in Singapore. I saw her at this conference. And she, along with some other women, they went above and beyond to help me get my business registered. The conference ended on a Wednesday, February 27th, 5 p.m. Qatar time. My business was officially registered by 5:30 p.m. Right after the conference ended. The following day, there were a few more things, but every day, one of these, I call them my group of guardian angels. One of them was either texting me or emailing me. Okay, this is the next thing you need to do. Did you do this? Did you get a company stamp? And like all of these things, none of this was documented anywhere about what the next steps would be, but they were each playing a major role in making sure that this happened. So this is how we kind of put a button on, or wrap all of this up with a bow, crossing an ocean, both personally with the TEDx talk and professionally now. Equilibria, my company, is a registered LLC in Qatar. And I mean, I could not have imagined that this is what it would have turned out to be. So that is my testimony. That is my story. Mark, are you about to cry?
You do look like you're about to cry, Mark.
Well, I think the tear that I'm sharing is a tear of inspiration. And it's a tear for three very powerful words. And I know we talked about trusting your gut, but the three powerful words for me are cross the ocean. And this is powerful for me because, Alicia, I know we've been talking about your TED Talk experience and we've been talking about your entrepreneurial and business experience, but there are so many people who never cross their ocean. There are people stuck in jobs that don't cross the ocean. There are people stuck in neighborhoods that don't cross the ocean. There are people stuck in business who don't cross the ocean. There are people sitting alone, waiting to find their partner in life who don't cross the ocean, and they stay in this, what do you want to call it, puddle of water, pond of water, fishbowl, whatever you call it. They stay here and they never cross the ocean. And the reason why I asked you about that connection was because I was wondering, what is that unexpected benefit of crossing the ocean? Because I would love for everybody to think about what you just said, who might feel comfortable in their spot, who might be afraid to trust their gut and take that risk. Cross the ocean. Because something where you never expected to go is probably going to pay out in dividends. That's a t-shirt phrase. Cross the ocean. People like, they go, what? What are you talking about? Cross what ocean? Where am I swimming?
All right, Alicia's like, let me tell you.
Cross the ocean.
Cross the ocean.
Powerful. That was powerful. You're right, Alicia. There's such a great bow on this. I just shared with you, for me, something that came away. Cathey, I'd love to just turn it over to you for a moment and ask what's a big takeaway for you from this conversation.
Yeah, Alicia, like hearing your all the stories and how they all converged. It's been a fun episode for me because normally we riff a lot and the conversation kind of goes everywhere, but we got to sit back and listen to your journey and listen to your story and how they all came together. I felt like I was watching the movie Crash. Remember that movie? Like all these things came together and then it was beautiful and you're crying and you're like, ah. I love what Mark said. I love this metaphor because in your actual TEDx talk, it was the Jimmy effect, but here it's kind of like cross the ocean or cross your ocean, whatever. Like it's this thing of being able to move yourself out of something. And you explained a couple of very dire situations too. I mean, even the day of your TED talk and everything. Anyway, I've enjoyed thoroughly listening to this. I'm so proud of your persistence. I'm so happy with where you're at. I love what feels to be like the new chapter in how do you say it? Qatar?
Just say Qatar. It's Qatar.
Qatar. Okay, yeah. I know because it's like in Melbourne, we always call it Melbourne or something, but in Australia it's like Melbourne. Like there's always like the right local way to say it, and you're like, oh, I'm saying it wrong. Yeah, anyway, I just Mark, I'd say my big takeaway is like two big things. Trust your gut, guard your gut, maybe even like guard it, guard that gut. Because people want to tell you different stuff, like guard that. When you feel that feeling, guard it, and then take the initiative, which is cross your ocean. I'd probably say it to myself, cross your ocean, because then it doesn't have to be like, It's your own
Yes.
ocean. Yeah. Whatever your ocean is.
I love it. I love that
I
you
do
put the your in
too.
there. I love that.
Yes.
I love that. Alicia, and for you,
Yes.
since we started this conversation, what's something new bubbling in your head, or what's something different bubbling in your head,
Oh,
or what are you
wow.
crossing the ocean with after this conversation?
I must say, I continue to be amazed at both of you and your ability to listen to what someone is saying and come up with these very clever catchphrases. Guard your gut, cross your ocean, around the world and back was something I wrote that you said earlier, Marc. I think this has been very therapeutic for me in many ways because it lets me know that this is a powerful testimony. And thank you so much for giving me sharing your platform with me to be able to share this testimony. I really do hope that the people who need to hear and or see this will hear and or
Yeah.
see this.
Yes. Yes.
That's all I
Alicia,
have, Marc.
that's all you need to have. You've poured so much into this conversation that we are so appreciating you. And we just want to say to anybody who's watching, if they want to know how to get in touch with you or how to learn more about you, where can they go? What can they do to cross the ocean with you?
Cross the ocean with me. Let's go on this ride together. Well, so I'm very active on LinkedIn, and you can find me there. I'm Alicia Butler Pierre. Please send me a request to connect. I would love to. And my company website is my company's name is Equilibria, and the website is eqbsystems.com. While you're there, click on the podcast tab. We have a fun show called Scale Tales, and I would love for Cathey and Marc to both be guests on that show.
Yes.
But it's really fun because it's a storytelling podcast where people come on and they tell these incredible stories about times where they may have scaled impact, scaled revenue, scaled teams, whatever it is that they've scaled. So yes, those are the best ways to keep up with me, and we can continue to be on this journey together.
Yes, indeed, indeed. Well, we hope everybody, we know everybody enjoyed this conversation. And like you said, for those who really needed to receive this today, we are glad that you are here to receive it with us. And for anybody else out there who's sitting in their own little fishbowl with this wonderful idea, we need you to cross your ocean. Come over to the land of Marc and Cathey and share this idea with us, because we want to share your idea with the entire world and anybody else who needs to receive that message from you. Trust your gut and trust us to have that idea conversation with you. Alicia, thank you so much, 1,001 times and a million more. Thank you for everything that you've done. Thank you for everything that you will do. And thank you for being here with Cathey and I. You made this a special episode of It's About to Go Down.
Down. There's the light again. It went down once again.